Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Bachelor Nation News fans. Sometimes the most unforgettable moments on The Golden Bachelor don't come from dramatic rose ceremonies or romantic fireworks, but from a single look, a glance that captures shock, hope, jealousy, and vulnerability all at once. And in week 2 of the season, that moment belonged to Cindy. When Mel unveiled a surprise during the group date, no one, not even the most seasoned viewers, saw the ripple effect it would create. What began as a light-hearted outing quickly turned into one of the most emotionally charged afternoons of the season. Cindy's reaction said it all. Tonight, we're diving deep into the moment that shook the mansion. We'll walk through the build-up, the surprise itself, and every emotional beat that followed. Because for this group of women, each with a lifetime of stories behind them, this wasn't just a date, it was a turning point. So settle in, grab your tea, maybe a cozy blanket, and let's rewind to that unforgettable day. The day began with sunshine, laughter, and a sense of camaraderie. The women had just settled into mansion life, finding their rhythm between sisterhood and rivalry. Cindy, always poised and quietly confident, had started to emerge as a calm, grounding presence. Mel, on the other hand, had been a bit of a wild card. Charming, warm, but occasionally unpredictable. When the date card arrived with her name on it, no one was sure what to expect. The card read, "Love is full of surprises. Are you ready for one?" Immediately, whispers filled the living room. Cindy smiled a little cautiously, sensing something was brewing. For these women, a group date isn't just a casual get-together. At this stage in life, every shared moment carries weight. These are women who know what they want, who've raised families, led careers, experienced love and loss. A surprise isn't just romantic. It can mean emotional upheaval. And yet, as the limo pulled up, the energy was light. Little did they know, Mel had planned something that would turn their expectations upside down. As the women stepped out onto the lush garden lawn, expecting maybe a simple picnic or game, they were met with something entirely different. A stage, a microphone, and in the distance, a familiar figure approaching. It was Mel, but not the way they'd seen her before. Dressed elegantly, with a nervous smile, she carried a small white envelope close to her chest. Cindy's eyes narrowed, curious. Others gasped softly. Mel began by saying, "Today isn't just about fun. It's about honesty and something I've been waiting to share." The women leaned in. Was she about to confess feelings to the Bachelor, address mansion rumors? No one knew. Then she handed the envelope to the producer, who set it on the microphone stand. Mel's hands trembled, not from fear, but from anticipation. Cindy crossed her arms gently, her body language calm, but alert. She had a knack for sensing emotional storms before they hit. What was inside that envelope would change the mood of the entire date. The Bachelor picked up the envelope and began to read. It was a letter. Not from a producer, not from a contestant, from Mel herself. Line by line, the letter unfolded like a heartfelt confession, a poetic recounting of their first conversation, the small details she'd noticed about him, and her sincere hopes for their journey. It wasn't over the top or performative. It was raw, vulnerable, mature. The other women watched in stunned silence. Cindy's face softened, but only for a moment. She pressed her lips together, processing the moment with layered emotions. Admiration, maybe, but also the dawning realization that the game had changed. For many in the mansion, romantic gestures are expected from him, but a contestant taking control of the narrative, that was rare and powerful. When the letter ended, the garden fell silent, and then applause. Even Cindy joined in, her claps measured but sincere. But her eyes, they told a deeper story. Body language doesn't lie. While others chatted excitedly after the letter, Cindy remained quiet. She stood slightly apart, watching Mel and the Bachelor share a warm embrace. A close-up shot during the broadcast captured it perfectly, her eyes glistening with unspoken thoughts. Not anger, not bitterness, but something quieter. Maybe a reminder of moments in her own past when love surprised her too. For viewers, it was a striking image. In an environment often filled with dramatic outbursts, Cindy's reaction was subtle, elegant, but piercing. Bachelor Nation lit up online afterward, saying, Cindy's face said everything. And they were right. In that instant, she embodied the emotional complexity that this season has brought to the screen. This isn't just a show about roses and dates. It's about women rediscovering hope, vulnerability, and courage, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. When the group returned to the mansion that evening, the atmosphere had shifted. Conversations around the kitchen island were a mix of admiration for Mel and nervous speculation. One contestant whispered, "She set the bar really high." Another admitted, "I wasn't expecting something so emotional so soon." Cindy stayed mostly quiet, sipping tea, her expression thoughtful. In many ways, the letter wasn't just a romantic move, it was a strategic one. It placed Mel at the emotional center of the week's storyline. And Cindy? Her silent reaction became the most talked about moment online. By the next day, social media was buzzing. Fans were dissecting her every glance. Was she hurt? Was she impressed? Did Cindy just realize she has competition? The truth might be a mix of all three. For many viewers in their 60s, this moment hit differently. It wasn't about youthful drama or explosive rivalries. It was about seeing women of their generation navigate the delicate dance of vulnerability and competition with grace. Cindy's reaction reflected something universal, how it feels to witness someone else take a leap that you yourself might have hesitated to take. It reminded us that love, at any age, demands courage. And sometimes, courage looks like writing a letter. Other times, it looks like quietly standing by, taking it all in, and deciding how you'll respond tomorrow. As the episode closed, the camera lingered one last time on Cindy's face during her confessional. She said only this, "I didn't expect that, but maybe that's the point." It was the perfect note to end on, a blend of surprise, reflection, and quiet determination. Mel's group date surprise may have been the headline, but Cindy's reaction became the heart of the story. And as we look ahead to next week, one thing's clear. The emotional stakes have officially been raised. If this is how week 2 played out, can you imagine what's coming next? Thanks for joining us as we unpacked one of the season's most unforgettable moments. If you felt something watching Cindy's reaction, you weren't alone. Stay tuned, because this love story is just getting started.
Buzzing. The roses are glimmering under the soft glow of chandeliers, and the tension is thicker than ever. Tonight, a group date that nobody saw coming is about to turn the love story upside down. Some hearts are racing, and some might be breaking. But one reaction in particular, Cindy's, will leave everyone talking for days. You can almost hear the whispers across the mansion as Mel's surprise is revealed, a twist that no one could have anticipated. It all started as a calm afternoon in the mansion. The contestants, all dressed in casual elegance, were lounging near the pool, sipping cocktails, and exchanging polite small talk. Cindy, ever the composed presence in the room, sat slightly apart, her eyes following Mel as he moved with a quiet confidence. Mel had a reputation for being thoughtful, yet unpredictable. He had a way of making each woman feel like the only one in the room. But tonight, something different lingered in the air. The producers had promised a special group date, but no one had any idea what was coming. Whispers of excitement and anxiety mingled. Cindy, who had always been strategic and aware of the dynamics, sensed a shift. Her intuition tingled, and she tightened her grip on her glass, bracing for anything. A soft chime echoed through the mansion. It was the group date invitation, but this one was unlike any before. The envelope shimmered in the light, adorned with a golden seal and a delicate heart, an unmistakable sign of romance, but also of surprise. Mel entered the room, holding a matching envelope. Every contestant's eyes were glued to him. "Ladies," he said, voice calm but layered with excitement. "Today's group date is one you won't forget. Each of you will experience something personal, meaningful, and perhaps revealing." Cindy's brow furrowed. "Revealing?" she whispered to herself, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. She had learned that Mel's surprises often meant a shift in alliances, emotions, and sometimes heartbreak. And tonight, she feared, would be no different. The women followed Mel outside, where a sleek vintage limousine waited. The air was warm, carrying the faint scent of summer flowers. Mel instructed them to hop in and not peek until they arrived at the destination. The tension was palpable. Everyone was buzzing with speculation. Was it a romantic getaway? A physical challenge? Or perhaps a deep emotional revelation? Cindy sat back, her hands folded, observing her fellow contestants. She noticed subtle reactions, the nervous giggles, the exchanged glances, the forced smiles. Everyone was bracing themselves, but she felt a strange clarity. She had a sense that this group date would separate the sincere from the strategic. A soft chime echoed through the mansion. It was the group date invitation, but this one was unlike any before. The envelope shimmered in the light, adorned with a golden seal and a delicate heart, an unmistakable sign of romance, but also of surprise. Mel entered the room, holding a matching envelope. Every contestant's eyes were glued to him. "Ladies," he said, voice calm but layered with excitement, "today's group date is one you won't forget. Each of you will experience something personal, meaningful, and perhaps revealing." Cindy's brow furrowed. "Revealing," she whispered to herself, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. She had learned that Mel's surprises often meant a shift in alliances, emotions, and sometimes heartbreak. And tonight, she feared, would be no different. The women followed Mel outside, where a sleek vintage limousine waited. The air was warm, carrying the faint scent of summer flowers. Mel instructed them to hop in and not peek until they arrived at the destination. The tension was palpable. Everyone was buzzing with speculation. Was it a romantic getaway? A physical challenge? Or perhaps a deep emotional revelation? Cindy sat back, her hands folded, observing her fellow contestants. She noticed subtle reactions, the nervous giggles, the exchanged glances, the forced smiles. Everyone was bracing themselves, but she felt a strange clarity. She had a sense that this group date would separate the sincere from the strategic. A private estate on the edge of a sparkling lake was the scene. A soft golden sunset bathed the scene in a romantic glow. But it wasn't the grandeur of the estate that caused Cindy to gasp. It was the unexpected guests. "Mel," she whispered under her breath, as familiar faces from his past emerged. Friends, family, and a few individuals who had shaped his life before the mansion. This wasn't just a date, it was a window into Mel's world, a chance for the women to see the man beyond the charming smile. Cindy's heart raced. She had known Mel was protective of his personal life, so this reveal was significant. But as she watched the other women's reactions, shock, awe, and a touch of jealousy, she realized that this was a test of emotional maturity. Who could navigate Mel's world with grace? Who would falter? The date began with an intimate icebreaker. Each woman was invited to share a personal story, something meaningful, something that revealed a part of themselves they often kept hidden. Mel listened intently, nodding and smiling, offering comfort where needed. Cindy's turn approached. She felt a familiar surge of nerves. She had always presented herself as composed, rational, and careful. But tonight, she decided, she would let her vulnerability show. As she spoke about her past challenges, the laughter and heartbreak she had endured, the room quieted. There was a raw honesty in her voice that caught even Mel by surprise. Mel's eyes softened. He said, "Thank you, Cindy. That takes courage." At that moment, the dynamics shifted. Cindy was no longer just a contestant. She had become a presence, a force of authenticity in the room. Just as the emotional intensity settled, Mel dropped the bombshell. "Ladies, the next part of today's group date is a surprise challenge. It's designed not just to test your connection with me, but also to see how you interact with each other." A sleek, vintage rowboat awaited on the lake. Each woman was to pair up, row across the lake, and retrieve a symbolic token that represented their vision of love. But there was a twist. The tokens were not labeled, and the challenge required collaboration, strategy, and intuition. Cindy, naturally cautious, observed her potential partners. She noticed subtle alliances forming, subtle tactics being discussed in hushed tones. She decided to go with someone who shared her calm, steady approach. As the boats glided across the shimmering lake, tension mounted. Miscommunication and minor mishaps created friction among the contestants. One pair argued over rowing technique, another struggled to agree on which token to pursue. Cindy, however, remained focused. She encouraged her partner, offering gentle guidance while staying true to her own strategy. When they finally retrieved the token, a delicate silver heart, she felt a rush of accomplishment. Mel, observing from the shore, couldn't hide his admiration. He approached Cindy's boat, smiling. "You handled that beautifully. Calm, strategic, and authentic. That's rare." The other women exchanged glances. Cindy's composure and skill had set her apart, and it was clear that Mel had noticed. After the lake challenge, everyone returned to the estate for a private dinner. The table was adorned with candles, roses, and fine crystal glasses. Mel had arranged a personal surprise for each contestant, an intimate gift that reflected his understanding of them. When Cindy opened her gift, her eyes widened. It was a handwritten letter from Mel expressing admiration for her authenticity, her strength, and the way she had embraced the day's surprises. Her reaction was immediate and visible. She smiled, laughed, and even shed a tear or two. The other contestants watched in silence. Cindy's reaction said it all. This wasn't just a date, this was a connection. Mel leaned closer. "Cindy, I wanted you to know that your presence today truly stood out. You showed me who you are, not just what you think I want to see." The mansion buzzed with subtle tension. Other contestants began to whisper, sensing that the balance of favor had shifted. Cindy's poise and heartfelt response had set her apart. Just when the evening seemed to settle, Mel surprised everyone again. He called the women together for one final moment before the rose ceremony. On a large screen, he shared a video montage of his past, childhood memories, achievements, friendships, and meaningful life moments. The women watched intently, seeing a side of Mel that few had witnessed. Some were moved to tears, others to reflection, and a few to strategic recalibration. Cindy, however, remained centered. She absorbed the experience, smiling softly, and allowed herself to truly connect with Mel on a deeper emotional level. It was clear to everyone, Cindy had navigated the group date with grace, honesty, and intelligence. Her reaction, authentic, heartfelt, and unguarded, was unmistakable. As the group date concluded and the women returned to the mansion, the energy had shifted. Conversations were quieter, glances more measured, and alliances subtly reevaluated. Cindy walked into the